Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to try to make a quick video here. So normally I make Paladin PvP guides, but a little known fact about me is that during Wrath, I spent a lot of time on the private servers trying to figure out what I wanted to main. And it turns out I didn't end up maining a Paladin for Wrath, I ended up maining a Shaman. And Shaman's always been one of my secondary Paladin. You know, most Paladins, we also like to play Shaman. That's kind of our horde side thing. The two classes have some very strong overlap. But as it turns out, I am somewhat qualified to make a Shaman PvP guide, so that's what we're going to do for Season Discovery. Basically, Sky from the Comeback Kids, he's a Palatine fan. He wanted me to make a few videos on Paladin. I asked him how the Shaman PvP guide stuff was going, and he said it's terrible, please make one. So I was like, you know, fine, I'll do my best to try to make one. Alright, so some interesting things about Shaman here. Mostly it's in the runes, but we'll talk about the talents here in a second. Let's just go over the runes really fast. That's a good question. Do I want to go over the runes or do I want to go over the talent tree really quickly here? You kind of can't talk about one with the other. You kind of have to talk about them all at the same time. So the quick overview of the talent tree is that eventually when you get up to level 60, you're going to be the classical, we strip 2 points out of here. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I strip 2 points out of here. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And where's the spare point? Come on. Oh, yeah, it's in reverberation. Okay. So in Era, the apex predator of shamans in general, right? Because enhancement shaman is not a thing. So the apex predator of elemental shamans in Era PvP is the nature swiftness elemental shaman, the dreaded 30021. The reason why it's the apex predator is that nature swiftness she pulls double duty as both a defensive option and an offensive option. It was discovered that you could make a macro so that you could cast a lightning bolt in somebody's face and then immediately nature swiftness out a chain lightning and earth shock all in the same global because nature swiftness apparently doesn't have a GCD behind it. And this will do between 4,000 and 7,500 damage depending on how many crits you get, basically, like on average kind of a thing. But absolutely terrifying. Point is that just like the 31 talent point in Elemental Mastery, you basically have a Kamehameha burst combo at your disposal. But unlike the Elementary Mastery talent, there we go, she is much better defensively flexible. So Nature Swiftness particularly protects you against the burst of all the classes that you're really scared of as a shaman bursting on you, with the sole exception. No, it even protects you somewhat against Paladin in the grand scheme of things. Paladins can't actually wreck bomb a shaman out of existence. We usually end up taking like 2/3 of their life away in the grand scheme of things. I'm actually really tired, so I'm way more pauses in my video than there normally is, and I'm not used to talking about shaman quite so fluidically. Been a while. But specifically, what shamans really don't like from a bursting perspective is they don't like mages, and they don't like what's the other one? Rogues. So they really struggle to get any kind of heals off against rogues. They really struggle to burst on rogues. Mages are kind of the same story, and nature's swiftness kind of doesn't care. In the grand scheme of things, like the best thing a mage can possibly do to you would be like a Palm Pyro mage, because they have improved counterspell, which can silence you for 5 seconds. So they'll turn you into a sheep, and then they'll cast like a pyroblast at you, and before the pyroblast hits you, they'll silence you for 5 seconds, and then they have to wait out a GCD before they palm pyro out a pyroblast at you. And then usually there's like one more spell cast in their burst. But you just survive that primarily using PvP trinkets, or you throw a grenade at them, or something. And then you just nature swiftness yourself pretty much back up to full life. It's the same thing with rogues. Rogues really struggle to get through your effective plate mail armor. And when they finally get through your plate mail armor, their reward is that you nature swiftness yourself for 2,000 HP. So nature swiftness really helps protecting you against bursting classes. I feel like there's one more bursting class I'm forgetting about, but I don't think there is. Yeah, so that's just why she's taken. Both offensively and defensively, there's no weakness to this build whatsoever. She is the apex predator of Era World of Warcraft. So, in Season of Discovery, fascinatingly, almost nothing changes. You'd think Enhancement Shaman would be better and all that stuff, but it's actually not. Let me check to make sure I'm recording here. How do I put this? The big talent points in Season of Discovery are going to specifically be Healing Focus. No, I'm not joking. And Eye of the Storm. Basically, any build that's not taking either Healing Focus or Eye of the Storm, and ideally both of these at the same time, is kind of doing something wrong. And very quickly, you pick up Nature's Swiftness because it also gives you that burst protection in Season of Discovery, which is super, super important. But then, you might as well just keep going down the elemental tree and get Lightning Mastery and get Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning spells by 1 second. Yeah. Elemental Fury, Storm's Reach, yada, yada, yada. We'll talk about why that is. The TLDR here is that with Earth Shield, you have like 100% pushback immunity to casting healing spells. And then Eye of the Storm basically does the same thing for your offensive spell casts. She basically allows you to cast spells for free with no pushback whatsoever in people's face. We're going to see why that is so important. So the problem is, even if you're an enhancement shaman, you're like, well, I really want to cast some spells in combat without needing 5 out of 5 Maelstrom charges, and the only way to really do that effectively is to have 3 out of 3 Eye of the Storm. And then maybe I want to cast some healing as an enhancement shaman, and I'd like to do that without suffering any pushback, so I need healing focus. And at the end of the day, you're just like, well, damn, you might as well go with the apex predator, whether you're an enhancement shaman or not. But let's look at the runes really fast, and you'll really start seeing why this thing is inevitably the way that it is. Okay, because what I'm about to show you here is basically completely broken. All right, let's start with Maelstrom Weapon to begin with. Time to drink water here. Okay. Maelstrom Weapon, as I'm sure all you tanks probably know by now, at least if it's the same way. I haven't tested it actually in SoD, but in Wrath I did testing on it, and she has no... as long as you have 1 charge of Maelstrom Weapon active, the act of casting a spell does not reset your attack timer on your weapon at all. So theoretically, what you're supposed to be doing is you hit the target, you get 1 charge of Maelstrom, then you cast a spell into the target, and then you hit the target again because it's not resetting your weapon cooldown. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So every time you have at least 1 charge of this damn thing and your weapon swing timer's on cooldown, you're casting a spell. Doesn't matter if it's a lightning bolt, doesn't matter if it's chain lightning, doesn't matter if it's a lava burst, you're just casting a spell. This is also the reason why eventually you're going to want to get down here to Lightning Mastery, and you're going to want to make that Lightning Bolt a 2-second spell cast. You're going to want to make that Chain Lightning a 1.5-second spell cast. So you have something to get out really fast in between your weapon swings, besides Lava Burst on her 6-second cooldown or whatever the hell she is. Now, are you supposed to be, smacking people with, is hitting people with our weapon our primary source of damage? No, it's not. But when people get on top of you, Maelstrom does all kinds of terrible, awful, no good things to people, and is significantly better than most of the stuff that you have going on here. She's both offensive and defensive in how terrifying she is. So when we start looking at the other things, that's when the value of a single Maelstrom weapon charge starts really becoming terrifying. I never was able to actually figure out how often she procs. I do know that she's PPM, Maelstrom weapon, she's PPM. Which means that I think she procs once every 5 seconds of swing time. So if you had a 2.5 speed weapon, every auto attack would be a 50% chance to proc it. If you had a 1 second swing speed weapon, it would have a 20% chance to proc, if that makes sense. Every 5 seconds of swing time, she procs 1. I could be wrong about that. Lord knows that the tanking shamans probably know that stuff better than me. This is just holdover Wrath knowledge from when I was making my shaman guide videos. Okay, so why she's so terrifying is this. Like, the value of one of these charges is so terrifying is because of tidal waves. Now, in order to take tidal waves, we have to take Riptide, and Riptide comes at at the expense, opportunity cost of the other terrifying stuff here, dealing with your stupid lightning shield, such as Overcharge. And before I get into this, let me just talk about Overcharge really fast. Holy crud. So the first time I looked at Overcharge, the very first thought I had in my mind was, is that 600 DPS? Yes, that is 600 DPS. That was the first thought that came to mind. The second thought that came to my mind was, someone at Blizzard is having a stroke. And then the third thought was, I just started laughing, and I was like, that's going to get nerfed into oblivion. Now, to give you an idea of how horrible this thing is, it's already starting to get the nerf bat. But I just started laughing the moment I saw this, right? Because a Sky from the Comeback Kids asked me to make a Shaman PvP guide video, because apparently they don't exist. So I said, fine, I would get on it. I took one look at this damn thing, I started laughing, and I was like, what the balls? And I figured I was just going to ignore it to death, because this thing is getting the nerf bat. So to give you an idea of how bad this is like take Rune, take Rune, push button once, and gain 600 reflect DPS. Lightning Shield in Classic World of Warcraft does not mess around. She has spell power ratio behind her. She can ×2 crit if you have the Elemental Mastery or whatever the heck it is. That's not what it's called. I should know this as a shaman. Oh boy, give me a sec here. Elemental Fury, yeah. If you got Elemental Fury, she ×2 procs. And generally speaking, she takes out in PvP, like, she hits for about 600 on average. She does about 12% of target life per hit. And Lightning Shield only procs once every, like, 3 seconds. Okay? This thing is trying to tell me that this thing makes it a 1 second cooldown, which already would make it broken. It's telling me that I never lose charges, which is also like WTF. And then it's trying to tell me that it's an 8-yard AoE. And my brain immediately was like, if this thing did 100 DPS and had all that going on, and it didn't do 600 DPS, it might still be game breaking at 100 DPS. But at 600 DPS, this thing's getting the nerf hammer 6 ways from Sunday. Especially since other scary things exist in the game now, like mental dexterity, and Blizzard seems to be dabbling potentially with giving shamans all stats gear like they're giving paladins. Enhancement shamans and Season of Discovery are going to want all stats gear. The moment you give them mental dexterity, they're going to want all stats gear. They're going to want all stats gear. Blizzard, give them all stats gear, kind of a thing. But that being said, we're not using all stats gear on this, but if it did exist, no, because Tidal Waves is way worse. However, even Overcharged, without all the nerfs, is probably nowhere near as good as Riptide. And the reason for it is because Overcharge comes at the opportunity cost of Riptide, and Overcharge comes at the opportunity cost of Earthshield. And I'm about to show you what the hell you're going to do with Earthshield, Riptide, Healing Waves, and Maelstrom Weapon in conjunction with Lava Burst. Overload's just here because why the hell not? But holy crap, do these things do terrible, terrible, awful, no good things. Speaking of which, let me pull up a calculator here really fast. Sheesh. Okay, so why is this so terrifying? Alright, so I don't know what the cooldown or spell power ratio of Riptide is, but I do know that she's instant cast. So even assuming she's like a 15-second cooldown or an 8-second cooldown or something like that in Season of Discovery, HOTS in PvP are absolutely terrifying in Classic World of Warcraft. They're much more valuable than you would think they would be. And the primary reason for this is because there's a lot of stunning in Classic World of Warcraft, right? There's grenades that'll stun you for 3 seconds. There's, well, if you're a shaman, there's Hodge stuns flying off all over the place. There are Goblin Mortars going off, and then there are Tidal Charms going off all over the place. Stuns are ubiquitous in Classic World of Warcraft. And in Season of Discovery, where things are very, very bursty, stuns are even more ubiquitous. Stuns are both an offensive and a defensive trinket, which is why they're usually preferred over every other trinket option possible, because, again, you can use them both offensively and defensively. They're extremely tactical. The reason why HOTS are so terrifying is because when you get stunned, right, your DPS goes away, your hard cast healing goes away, right? But your HOTS don't care. You're like, oh, you stunned me? I'm not sure I care. And the HOTS just keep rolling, right? And if you actually do the math on that, it's its value is kind of insane, because when you stun the enemy, you shut down their DPS and your HOTS are rolling on you, which means you can now DPS them while your HOTS are still rolling on you. When you get stunned, your DPS is shut down, but your HOTS are rolling on you. So you can start seeing the double dipping, right? So they stun you, you sit the stun, your HOTS are rolling, you lose DPS, so what? You stun them, you DPS on them, it should cancel out theoretically, but your HOTS are still rolling. If you just do the math on it, if you did like a tale of two shamans fighting each other, and they both had like 500 DPS and like 500 HPS, or except one has that HPS, like half that HPS and HOTS, and the other one has that HPS and just hardcast heals. The HOTS they just do so much for you, especially when you got the when you factor in stuns. Also, you can be highly mobile when HOTS are rolling, which greatly lowers enemy DPS. They're just so insane, so powerful in classic World of Warcraft. So yeah, you give me the chance to take a HOT on my Paladin, I'm taking a HOT. You give me a chance to take a HOT on a Shaman, I'm taking a HOT on my damn Shaman. Or what are you nuts? I'm taking this damn HOT. And the fact that it triggers tidal waves just makes it even worse. But we'll get to that in a second. Earth Shield. Well, Earth Shield is, guess what? She's a HOT. I don't know what her spell power ratio is. By the way, please enlighten me in the comment section below what the cooldown of Riptide is, and her spell power ratio, and her base healing preferably. As far as numbers are concerned, I'd also like the same stuff for Earth Shield. What's her spell power ratio? What's her base healing? Blah, 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 blah. How often does she proc? Blah, 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 blah. So we can get a much better understanding here. But the fact that Earth Shield is also effectively a HOT, you give me a chance to take a HOT, I'm going to take a HOT. But more importantly, she gives 30% pushback immunity when you're healing. You already have Healing Focus, which gives you 100% pushback immunity. You have Eye of the Storm, which is going to give you 100% pushback immunity when you really need it, which means you have, and this is very important, you're going to suffer no pushback when you're trying to cast heals, and you're going to suffer no pushback when you're trying to cast offensive spells, which means you can heal in people's face, and you can cast spells in their face, and the only damn thing they can do about it is stun you. But we already talked about how your HOTS don't give a crap about being stunned, which is why we have 2 of them. Right, so Earth Shield HOT, Riptide HOT, awesome, awesome, awesome. Definitely taking them. But then you start looking at the tidal waves and the Maelstrom weapon, and you start going, holy fuck. Like, this is some broken shit we're about to talk about right now. This is the stuff that makes me want to reroll Shaman in SoD and stop playing Paladin. But Lord knows I'm going to take Paladin, I'm going to shove it down everybody's throats, and I'm going to show you that Paladin is the best. But this is terrifying. This is the stuff where I'm like, wow. The only thing that's even remotely making me think that this is balanced is there's nothing here that says that Shamans can't run out of mana. But what I'm about to show you is, unless you only have 2 options to kill a Shaman, you either have to burst them out of existence, good luck doing that, they have Nature Swiftness, or you have to them because you are not DPSing them down with this build right here at all. Okay, so what's so gross about this? Well, as you can see here, Tidal Waves is saying when you cast Chain Heal or Riptide, and Riptide's are instant cast, HOT basically, you gain 2 charges of Tidal Waves, which reduces the cast time of your healing wave by 30% and increases the critical effect chance of your lesser healing wave by 25%. We're more interested in the reduction of healing wave, cast time of healing wave reduced by 30%. What the balls? Are you nuts? That's insane. Healing wave is basically a holy light. 1 sec, let me cough. Damn it, I need to cough again. Drink of water. I want to go off here, but my voice is like, no. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, this is nuts. Let me tell you why this is nuts. Because you're taking Maelstrom weapon. That's why this is nuts. What are you, crazy? Okay, so let's just do it here really fast, all right? So normally, your healing wave, which is basically a holy light, has a 2.5-second cast time. Okay. This is going to reduce it by 30%. So now you're telling me it has a 1.125-second cast time. Okie dokie. But what if I have a Maelstrom weapon proc? And keep in mind that if something's in melee with you, you're only going to be doing two things. You're either going to be bitch slapping it or casting spells. Bitch slapping it, casting spells. Bitch slapping it, casting spells. You're going to pretend you're a tank for a moment, and you're going to be like, I'm going to smack you till I get like a Maelstrom proc, and then I'm going to try to cast a spell at you, right? Because it's not going to stop your swing timer. So that's basically what you're doing when something gets into melee with you. If you have one charge of Maelstrom weapon, that's going to further reduce this by 20%, and I think it's probably additively. It might be multiplicatively, but if I know anything about Maelstrom weapon, it's probably using the exact same mass, so it's probably additively. But you'll have to playtest that for me personally. But basically what this means is that suddenly your 2.5-second cast with a single charge of Maelstrom weapon, which is extremely easy to get, is like, it's minus 50% cast time duration. So now you're telling me that my holy lights as a shaman have a 1.25 cast time, and when I don't have a charge of Maelstrom, it has a 1.75 cast time, and if I click this button, I get 2 charges of this thing? Is that what the hell you're telling me? So now you're telling me that I can grenade stun somebody, I can goblin mortar stun somebody, I can tidal charm somebody for 3 seconds, and I can put 2 fucking holy lights into myself worth of healing. I can put 4,000. This is a full fucking heal. Okay? This is I stun you for 3 seconds, hold my beer, let me heal to full. What the fuck is this shit? And if it's not additively, right, all you would need is like 2 charges of Maelstrom weapon, and it's the same deal. Holy fuck. So once I figured that out, I was like, damn. So definitely taking Riptide because she's both an instant heal, and she's a hot, and we already talked about powers of hot. We're taking Earth Shield because she's also super valuable at the hot, and she gives us 100% pushback immunity, which means that even if I don't have charges of Tidal Wave, but I am going to have charges of Tidal Wave, let's be honest. Let's say I have no Maelstrom weapon procs. No, let's not say that, okay? Let's say I have 1 Maelstrom weapon proc. I have 1 Tidal Wave active, but I don't have a stun on my target, right? So I just have to like, but I need to heal myself. So I just need to try to holy light in this guy's face at 1.25 seconds, right? I just have to do that. There's a rogue on me. I don't have a choice. I need to try to heal myself. It's going to be a 1.25 second cast, right? The difference between the possibility of suffering pushback and the possibility of suffering no pushback under these conditions is night and day. Because if you suffer pushback, if you don't know how pushback works, the first bit of pushback is 1 second worth of pushback, and then it halves itself into oblivion from there. So the next pushback is 0.5 seconds, then a quarter of a second, then a quarter of a second, and it never stops. It just halves itself into oblivion. It also can't go lower than however much the spell cast is. So if you're half a second into the spell cast and you suffer 1 second of pushback, you only suffer half of a second of spell pushback. But any of that said, right, even a fraction of a second of pushback is going to double the cast time, which is basically unacceptable, right? You want to get off that holy light in 1.25 seconds off of 1 Maelstrom charge and just like 1 tidal wave proc. That alone, doing that in somebody's face with 100% pushback immunity is absolutely terrifying and disgusting. The fact that you can stun them and basically get a full heal is also utterly terrifying and disgusting. The fact that I can stun you for 3 seconds, watch you PvP trinket that shit, stun you again for 1.5 seconds, and still fucking heal myself with a holy light before you can do anything about it is also terrifying. Like, let's be perfectly honest here. On top of the fact that while you're sitting there stunned like a dingus, I have my hots rolling. So, you know, it is what it is. Yes! Okay, so also where it gets really interesting and fascinating here is Lava Burst. Now, you might think that we're taking Lava Burst like, oh, it's just a damage spell and, blah, 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 blah. Or you might be like, hey, Paladin, you talked a lot about in your What's Wrong with the PvP Stuff video about the value of instant cast spells and how they're like, more than doubling all the instant cast spells they gave everybody, hard-hitting instant cast spells. How they're more than doubling the amount of effective HP that you need in PvP because you're just getting blown up out of existence. Why the hell are we taking Lava Burst? Especially since eventually we're going to have, 1.5 second long range chain lightnings and lightning bolts and all that good stuff. Why are we taking Lava Burst? Other than the fact that it's Lava Burst. Well, Lava Burst basically with this build gives you kick immunity, if you really, really think about it, right? So let's say you're fighting someone in melee, you get a charge of Maelstrom weapon, and you start going for a Lava Burst. All right, let's look at what that is. Your Lava Burst at that point will have a 1.6 second spell cast, right? And since we have Eye of the Storm, there's no pushback here whatsoever. There's no pushback, okay? So homie's got to do something about this 1.5 second spell cast, or he's going to take a lot of damage to the face. So let's say he kicks you. He's like, haha, I kicked you. Well, that means he's locking your fire school of magic. So what do? Well, you just chain lightning him in his face, or you lightning bolt him in his face, or you just, the better option probably is just to go for your 1.75 spell cast. No, at that, it's like your 1.25 second spell cast. Just heal yourself. Right? So it's like, what are we even talking about at this point? So I like the Lava Burst because it also gives you kick immunity. So you could go for the heal, they kick the heal, you just Lava Burst them. You go for the Lava Burst, they kick the Lava Burst, you just heal, or you chain lightning them in their face. Either way, it's a bad time for your enemy. And of course, we took Overload because there wasn't anything else here that was really all that great. You could take Shield Mastery if you wanted to. Like, I don't mind that at all. But you don't really have the stuff to... You guys doing all right over there? Okay. You don't really have the stuff to support it all that well, in my opinion, because you need talents and like shield specialization at a minimum to really get that thing working. It also makes you a super deadly paladin at range, like you have everything you need, right? So you got those long-range chain lightning spells, you got those long-range lava bursts, you got those long-range lightning bolts. If you wonder why I keep saying long-range, it's because you have, a 36-yard range on them, times 2 critical strike. You are the Apex Predator Elemental Shaman of Era Classic World of Warcraft, and you have all the tools you need to be the exact same thing in Season of Discovery, except now you're nigh unkillable, and when people get in a melee with you, it only gets worse. You know, it's just, I don't know what I'm looking at here. This thing is absolutely broken beyond belief. Other options, of course, are to take Healing Rain. I hear there's like a set bonus or a trinket or something that makes Healing Rain instant cast. From like the Emerald Dream or something like that. I don't know. You could mess around with that if you wanted to. But Healing Rain, even though, yes, it is a hot, and Lord knows we love hots, it's not really doing anything for me if I'm on the move. It's not really doing anything for me at long range. So I was just like, Elemental Overload. Especially since the Overload also potentially affects your healing, which just makes it worse. So that's basically where we're at right now. I wish there was something better than Decoy Totem. Personally, I think Decoy Totem sucks. Depending on how high your critical strike is, you might go with Ancestral Healing over it. But you're specifically taking this thing because, well, it's kind of a heal, and it lets you move if you want to move for whatever reason, so that's kind of nice. But probably more importantly, this is specifically designed to try to screw over Reckoning Paladins. It's not going to work. I'm going to tell you that right now. Every Reckoning Paladin worth his salt already lives in fear of lip potions, and we've lived in fear of lip potions for over a decade now. So our method of operation, and the way our Rec Bomb works just requires us to like hold our auto attack all the time. So basically, how auto attack works for us is we run up to people and we don't immediately hit them with the Rec Bomb. We just kind of stand there for a fraction of a second and eyeball them funny. And we wonder, like, are you going to lip potion? Are you going to use a lip on me? Is that what you're going to do? Limited invulnerability? No, okay. And then you hit them and they die. And Reckoning mechanics are as such that some people try to wait for the swing animation and then they'll activate a lip potion, or they'll try to wait for the swing animation, then they'll blink away, or they'll try to wait for a swing animation and then they'll ice block. thinking that's going to save them from Reckoning. But Reckoning is coded very strangely in the sense that once you click Reckoning on the target, it puts it in the front of the queue for damage resolution, right? So once I click Reckoning on the target, if they were not already ice blocked, and even if they batched an ice block, they're just gonna eat the Rec Bomb and die. So I can't count the number of times where I've seen people lip potion right as I'm swinging into them, and then they just eat the full Rec Bomb anyways because they don't know how Rec Bomb works. It'll literally put it at the front of the queue and say, you took this Rec Bomb, before the lip. So even though there's a delay, there's a visual delay, there's a delay in the damage, but you still eat all the damage. I've seen mages blink and then die. I've seen mages ice block and then die. There's really no outplaying it. So if you wait for them to swing and then you put down the decoy totem, you're just gonna eat a Rec Bomb and explode. Unless this thing has magical special coding I don't know about. Yeah, so we'll just sit there and wait and look at you funny, and then when you put down this stupid decoy totem, we're just going to judge it out of existence. Like, go away, and then we're going to Rec Bomb you, and we're just going to go from there. You're not going to care because you can easily heal yourself to full and laugh at us, no problem. And we're going to enter into a mana war between the two of us very, very quickly. Paladin versus Shaman. However, against other classes like Warrior, this thing is pretty good. There just wasn't anything better here. I was looking at everything in this rune slot, and I was like, wow, these all kind of suck. And this isn't going to save you from Rec Bomb at all. Are you guys having fun? All right. Are we really fighting or are we playing? What's going on here? I'm trying to make a video. Go away. I got two puppy Yorkie dogs right here that being psychopaths. What else is there to say? Rec Bomb. Right. And the other weird thing about playing a Paladin and using a Rec Bomb, there was one other thing besides lip potions. Right. Lightning Shield hits really, really hard and can crit you. So this is the other weird reason why this isn't going to work on seasoned Rec Bomb Paladin players. How you Rec Bomb a Shaman after charging at them in Classic WoW is this. You charge at them, you usually judge to get rid of, you get within judgment range, you judge to get rid of the grounding totem, and then you go for a Hodge stun on the Shaman. Somewhere during this whole process, you probably ate a grenade or a Tidal Charm or a Goblin Mortar. You ate the full power of their burst. You're alive with like 10% of your life, right? The last thing you want to do is put a Rec Bomb into this Shaman right now. And the reason for that is because that Lightning Shield, okay, that Lightning Shield will hit for 400 and it can potentially crit you for 800 damage. Okay, you follow me on this? It depends on what trinkets they're using, but typically she can crit for upwards of 800 damage. You have like 500 HP left. So the last thing on your mind right now is, let me put my Rec Bomb into this Elemental Shaman and just die to Lightning Shield. There's a lot of scenarios where Shamans will burst on rogues. The rogues will survive the burst with like 5% HP remaining, and then they literally cannot gouge the Shaman to get away from them because the Lightning Shield will kill them. It's actually kind of funny. But it's a similar scenario where we just get up close and personal. We survive the bomb. We judge away the grounding totem. We tell it to get the hell out of here. And then basically we're just trying to stun you. We'll throw the Hodge stun at you at first. If you're doing it right, you'll grenade stun the Shaman first, or Goblin Mortar stun them, or something like that. They'll PvP trinket it away. Then you'll throw a Hodge stun at them. It only lasts 3 seconds, but that's usually enough time to put a Holy Light into yourself. And now finally you have enough HP to start giving the Shaman the business, and things get just it turns into a mana war and a DPS war very, very quickly from there. But all this means is that Paladins are extremely well trained, that when we run up on a Shaman to basically dick around with our auto attack for an extended period of time before we have enough HP and to do this and do that before we actually start tangoing with you. Very interesting stuff. In Season of Discovery, I've been telling them all to take double jab trinkets. So you're not even going to get a full burst on them as an Elemental Shaman. You basically have to tango with them in melee. So I'm looking at this decoy totem, and I'm like, well, unless it's coded weirdly, it's not going to do anything to counter a Rec Bomb. unless you're dealing with like super noob paladins that just don't know any better, right? Like, oh, I ate a burst and I have 10% life left. Let me hit into the lightning shield. Yeah, you're gonna die. Let me hit into the lit potion. Yeah, it doesn't work either. No. The answer is you stun the shaman and you heal yourself. Like, what the hell are we doing here? Okay, so does that summarize just about everything? Yeah. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, okay, super long range, really good spell casting. It's literally an LE shaman. The defensive healing is absolutely terrifying. When you're in melee with it, it can actually heal itself in your face, and there's not a damn thing you like super quickly, and there's not really a damn thing you can do about it. It has Eye for the Storm, so it can sling spells into you at point blank range. This thing is an absolute monster. The only thing even remotely keeping this thing in check is there's no increased mana efficiency here, to my knowledge whatsoever. Other than that, this thing is the stuff of nightmares. It actually it gives me chills to look at this thing, and I'm like, thank God I'm a paladin, and just because I might be able to mana war this shaman to death. But holy crap, does this thing look terrifying. Like, I don't know how rogues are going to deal with this. I don't know how just about any other class can deal with this. Like I was saying before, you either burst this thing out of existence before they can get off of nature swiftness, which isn't even going to work because all they have to do is live off their PvP trinkets. Like, oh, I throw a grenade at you. That helps living. Oh, I'll stun you. I'll do this. Aha. They just have to live off their PvP trinkets, no problem. Because if this thing is allowed to cast any spells whatsoever, it's not going to die until it ooms, because the healing here is just nutter butters. Especially if it's in melee. So, absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Alright, so let's look at it at level 50 for the sake of argument here. Okay. What happened to the points? Something's wrong. What's going on? You have more points. It should be level 50. I know you have more points. I don't know what you're doing. Oh, I got 5 points in here. Derp. Yeah, okay. No. Boom, boom, and boom. I want that. Give me that. I don't want one there. Go away. So you're telling me I got to put one in here, and then I can put one in here, then I can strip one out. Screw you. Then I can put two here. Okay, cool. All right, so here's the build, right? You still have nature swiftness because you need nature swiftness for anti-burst protection. Since this is what's keeping you alive in the burst, this is what allows you to do all the tidal wave, riptide, earth shield. I'm never gonna die unless you burst me out of existence shenanigans. This is the thing that's gonna guard against you being bursted out of existence. For now, we're putting 2 points into improved fire totems because, again, while we're dicking around in melee with the enemy, we don't have a maelstrom proc, so we're still auto attacking the guy. Which means we can't cast any spells super efficiently. This will at least let us put down a Fire Nova Totem on like a 2-second delay, I do believe, which is pretty hard for the enemy to deal with, especially, I imagine, if you combo it with the stupid little Decoy Totem. I don't know if you could put them down both at the same time, but that'd be pretty funny. But this will probably help you DPS pretty decently against most classes, and there just wasn't anything else really worth a damn to put your points into. You either put 2 points in here or you don't. Maybe you could argue stripping a point out of reverberation and putting it into elemental focus. So that's the only damn weakness of this build whatsoever, is if it gets locked into a mana war with only a handful of other classes. Like everything else, you're just gonna your damage is gonna spike with the crits, and you're gonna blow them out of existence. The only class I can think of that could possibly engage you in a mana war would be a paladin played properly, and even then, honestly, my money might be on the shaman over a paladin. At least for now. At level 60, things are going to change because eye for an eye starts becoming a thing. And if you're stuck in melee with an eye for an eye reckoning paladin, thinking like, I'll out heal and DPS it. Ugh. So we're taking Eye of the Storm, right? So we can cast spells in people's faces. We're taking Nature Swiftness for protection. We lose our long range spells. Chain Lightning's not super good for us anymore. Suddenly she's like a 2.5 second spell cast, which sucks. Lightning Bolts are a 3-second spell cast, which suck. So you're nowhere near the monster at level 50 that you're going to be at level 60. But the fact that you're still this unkillable turd that keeps putting lava bursts into people, and basically what it means is because you don't have lightning mastery anymore. Let's just look at it really fast. So normally if you wanted to chain lightning somebody, it would be like 0.8 8, right? If you wanted to put a Chain Lightning into somebody with a single Maelstrom weapon proc, it would be a 1.2 second spell cast, which is pretty good. The Lightning Bolts would be a 1.6 second spell cast, which is pretty good. You can't suffer pushback, which is super, super important. But since they're so much longer, now that it's like a 2.5 second cast, ew, gross, you're probably not going to do it with one Maelstrom weapon proc anymore. You'll probably have to wait for 2 Maelstrom weapon procs, which is not ideal, but at least you can heal yourself like a god, and Lava Burst is still there for you. So it ends up being like, 0.6, so now it's a 1.5 second cast, where before it was like a 1.2. Your Lightning Bolts also kind of suck, even at a 0.6, because they're like 1.8 as opposed to 1.6. Not the greatest thing in the world. But on the bright side, Lava Burst is always going to be there for you at, I think she's a, fuck off. I think she's a 2 second cast, times 0.8. Yeah. So with 1 charge and Lava Burst available, she's still going to be there at 1.6. So nowhere near the monster you're going to be at level 60. You're also missing Elemental Fury, which really sucks. And Lord knows I'm not stripping a point out of Nature Swiftness to take that. Like, I'm not doing it. No, it's not happening. But this thing is basically just super, super durable and is going to grind most people down into dirt. Or it's going to wait till it gets overload and critical strike procs and just blow people up. Let's look at the gear really fast here for what we're going to be doing at level 50. So I'm using a ton of stamina on the gear because, again, the only thing that's going to kill this thing is you either have to blow it up like 100 to 0 before it can take any actions whatsoever, or you have to it in order to kill this stupid thing. You have to engage in an endurance fight with something you probably don't want to be in an endurance fight with, because this, believe it or not, even though it can run out of mana, it has a lot of efficiencies behind it, right? Yeah. Anyways. So I was just like, I just wanted as much HP as I could possibly get. I'm wearing a mix. I've decided for PvP, like almost, and this is the same way for Paladin. You want to get as much stamina as possible, so you want to ignore the 6-set bonus and just go straight for a double 3-set bonus. So I got Blood Guards, a 3-piece, and then the other one is the Inscribed Mail. Is it Blood Guards? Yeah, so it's Pulsating and Inscribed. So one is the plus healing gear, and the other one is the spell power gear. And I'm just doing that for the stamina bonus. You could easily swap out the plus healing gear for more spell power gear if you decide for whatever reason you want more spell power over stamina. But you will lose 150 stamina, so it'll drop down, but below 180 or 3,800 base health. That's not bad. This is about where the Paladins, the Reckoning Paladin is. The Reckoning Paladin, believe it or not, wears like all plus healing gear as much as possible. Well, they try to wear the mix of spell power and plus healing. It's actually kind of funny just because they get more stamina. But you can see our spell damage is pretty low at 109. But our plus healing is actually really good at 181. And this, of course, leans into the entirety of the build where it's like, yeah, you're really good at range, but really you're just kind of this durability monster that just isn't going anywhere. It synergizes more with what you're actually doing, all your super quick heals, all your hots, all that good stuff. But you could very easily argue to lose 150 stamina in exchange for probably something like plus, I'm thinking maybe plus 30 spell power, and then minus 50 or yeah, probably about minus 50 plus healing. I haven't really looked at it. I don't like that. I would rather just be super tanky to begin with, and then decide from there if I want more spell power or not. Some interesting things in the build. So the wrist guards are very stamina heavy. I just didn't want spell power anymore. I was just like, just give me some thick boy stamina gear. And the belt. There was no good belt. Mail belt, so I had to go for cloth belt. This thing's from like Blackrock Depths or something like that. At some point, I was just like, just give me stamina, just give me stamina, just give me stamina on a belt. And this turned out to be like the best option, right? Chance to hit with spells, spell damage and healing, great, but it's got 10 stamina on it, which is pretty good for a belt. But other than that, nope, it's just 2 3-set pieces, so you get as much stamina as possible. Even the rings are like, give me stamina, give me stamina. We do have Roar the Dream, which, will give you potentially more spell damage. And that's part of also this thing's playstyle, if you really think about it, right? So how it kills people is in one of two ways. Either you can't heal yourself, but this thing can, so eventually it's just going to kill you regardless of how much spell power it has behind its spells or not. It's going to chip you to death, right? So that would be against all classes that can't heal. Against classes that do heal, while your spell power is important, nothing kills enemy healers quite like spikes in damage temporarily, right? So if we go back over to the talents, as you know, we have tons of melee crit around, or spell crit around here. You could very easily strip all these points out of Reverberation and put them into Call of Thunder, but as you saw, our lightning spells are kind of crud right now, so I was probably just like, maybe Reverberation is better, but you very easily could argue for 4% increased critical strike on the lightning stuff, but really it's a combination of the fact that your stuff can crit, and then in conjunction with Overload, if you're casting spells at them and they're casting spells at you and they need to heal and you need to heal, well, your healing is going to be better because you got these stupid hots. You have super quick healing if you need it, which means you're going to have more time to DPS, which means they're going to lose the DPS war. The enemy spellcasters, like a druid, for example, or a priest, is going to lose the DPS war. Like 100% guaranteed. Purge is also something worth noting, right? You have Purge, they don't. Kind of a big deal. But they're going to lose the DPS war, which means they're going to start having to cast hard cast heals. Their hard cast heals are much longer to cast than your hard cast heals, which means you are DPSing to them while this is happening, which means they're going to be heal locked, right, for an extended period of time. So they might DPS at you for 5 seconds and have to heal themselves for 10 seconds. And rinse and repeat. Meanwhile, it's the complete opposite for you. You're probably having to heal yourself for 5 seconds, and then you're DPSing for 10 seconds, if that. And then at some point, all you're going to need is, Overload to do its thing and Lava Burst to do its thing. A bunch of crits start chaining together, and your enemy's really going to be up shit creek without a paddle. Highly probable that they just before you do, and they just die there. So, against things that can heal, you're really just waiting around for RNG to take its toll on the enemy. This is a lot like what mages like to do, right? So they'll sheep you, try to get a burst. If it doesn't work, they'll sheep you again, try to get a burst. If it doesn't work, they sheep you again. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Because they're just waiting for their spells to come up with a better critical strike RNG, and then you just explode. And all this thing needs to do in order to achieve that is just to keep casting spells into the enemy. But like I said, nowhere near the monster it's going to be at level 60, just because you don't actually have access to Lightning Mastery quite yet, and all these other goodies in this tree. But this thing is just disgustingly hard to kill. Like, what the hell, Blizzard? Like, what is this shit? This thing is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So anyways, this is just my cursory look at Elemental Shaman in Season of Discovery. And this is going to be the gold standard going forward that I'll compare every other build that you can possibly take. If I had to explain why this build and not other builds, you might be like, what about Enhancement Shaman? Well, the problem with Enhancement Shaman is twofold. Let me take a drink of water here. Enhancement Shaman sucks, and I'm going to tell you why. Oh, the other great thing about this, of course, is you have Elemental Warding, which really helps you against the bursts. Again, the only classes you're really scared of for bursting you are mages and rogues, predominantly. And if you're into duels like other shamans, right? And this will protect you, unironically, against both of those, because rogues actually do a lot of nature damage, which I find amusing that it actually protects you against rogues now. I'm like, really? Okay. But really, your armor is doing the heavy lifting against rogues. What was I saying here? Oh, Enhancement Shaman. The problems I had with it when I was trying to make Enhancement Shaman work. But the problems you have with Enhancement Shaman is that it's really... You have to choose between either the ability to heal yourself in combat, like this Shaman does, right? This Shaman goes deep enough into the restoration tree that it picks up healing focus, And then it goes even deeper to pick up Nature's Swiftness, giving it the anti. This gives you heal and combat capability in conjunction with Earth Shield, in conjunction with Maelstrom. Well, specifically, and also in conjunction with Tidal Waves. Everything here is just making it worse, right? But as a melee shaman, if you don't want to be healing yourself off of 5 effing charges of Maelstrom weapon. That is a complete and utter waste of Maelstrom. It's terrible. You don't want to do that. So which means you don't want to go any. You want to have pushback immunity as well. It's just weird. So what I'm trying to say here is that in order to have healing in combat as an enhancement shaman, I have to go pretty damn deep into the restoration tree. And then in order to have anti-burst protection, I have to go even deeper into the restoration tree, which means that I have to choose between Storm Strike and Nature's Swiftness. And between those two, in the existing meta, Nature's Swiftness is going to be objectively better than Storm Strike. You're like, why? Because it can be used both offensively and defensively. This is burst and this is burst. So, except this one can be used as heal. So you're always going to take Nature's Swiftness over Storm Strike. Like, guaranteed, 100%. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. But then you're like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be this melee DPS monster. I've taken Nature's Swiftness over Storm Strike like a good little boy. But I can't really cast spells in combat kind of like the Enhancement Shaman can do with Maelstrom weapon. So, because they don't have Eye of the Storm. But then there's the other route where you go all the way down and you pick up Storm Strike. And then you go all the way down here and you pick up Eye of the Storm. But then you don't have enough talent points to go into the Restoration Tree and pick up Healing Focus. So now you are a DPS monster in melee. And you have the ability to cast spells when you're not auto-attacking people, which is absolutely terrifying. So your DPS is there to the 9s, but you can't heal yourself. And what's really bad about that is a melee shaman has to go into melee in Season of Discovery. I don't know if you played a melee class yet in Season of Discovery, but it's actually nightmare fuel and it makes you want to quit the game. I did an entire video on why I think it's terrible. Basically, the TLDR of the video is that Blizzard gave out too many long-ranged, high-damage instant cast spells. So, for example, in Era, if you're a warrior and you charge into an enemy team, the enemy team basically has to, like, the worst thing that can happen to you, or at worst, what happens to you is the enemy team roots themselves into place. They spend 2 seconds casting some spell at you, and then maybe there's like a shaman or a priest or something. Not a shaman like a mage or two around that'll throw out a fire blast after they're done casting a frostbolt. Or they'll throw out an earth shock after they're done casting a lightning bolt. And that's about all the damage you're really looking to take, right? It's a handful of instant cast spells that don't do all that much damage, and then a bunch of hard cast spells at worst. In Season of Discovery, they gave everybody and their dog a hard-hitting instant cast spells. So now you're taking all of the normal spell cast damage, and on top of that, everyone has another hard-hitting instant cast spell behind it. Which means that you're literally taking, whereas before you were taking like X damage in Season of Discovery, you're probably taking 2X damage in the same 2-second space of time, which is disgusting. So it means that when you're pushing into the enemy in Season of Discovery, being a melee class means that you really need the ability to heal, or you're going to explode. And you don't want to go. Shaman just doesn't really have that. So it's like, okay, maybe I can get the ability to heal myself and survive in melee, but then I don't actually have DPS because I can't really cast spells. I'm just like auto-attacking people with dual wielding. And then you have questions about what the heck is dual wielding coming at the expense of. I think it's like overload or something like that. That's fine. I'm not doing overload, blah, 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 blah. But then very quickly, you don't even want to take Earth Shield. You want to take Way of Earth. But Way of Earth is terrible because it says when Rock Biter weapon is active. I don't want to use Rock Biter as an Enhancement Shaman. I want to use Wind Fury on my weapon for more Maelstrom procs. Okay, well, do I go Shamanistic Rage then instead for a 20% damage reduction? 20% damage reduction isn't shit. That's a 25% increase in effective HP for 15 seconds. Did you not hear what I just said? Do you not have any idea how much HP you need in Season of Discovery to not just be explodified? You're going to die. Also, you're running into an enemy alliance team. This is a terrible idea. Let me explain why. Because Alliance have these things called Paladins, and Horde have these things called Shamans, okay? Now, if you stay at range... What do I mean by this? I'm trying to explain the Alliance have more melee classes over there. So why the fuck are we pressing W towards them? Does that make sense? Okay, good. Because I'm like, well, I understand why I'm pressing W towards the Horde team. It's because if I stay at range, I'm going to get nuked. But if the Horde want to run at the enemy Alliance team, that kind of just favors the Alliance team because they have more things that are just going to do terrible, awful, no good things to you in melee. So you really don't want to go over there. So if you're going to play an Enhancement Shaman, you really want to play one that can actually barf pretty good spells at range. And so very quickly I was like, if I wanted to play an Enhancement Shaman in Season of Discovery, this is literally the spec you would probably want to use. Like, I'm not joking. You would literally just be like, what are we getting rid of for, is it Overcharge? Yeah, it's Overcharge. So you get rid of Overcharge, you take Dual Wield Specialization, you keep the exact same build just the way it is, and you call yourself an Enhancement Shaman. And no, I'm not joking. This is probably the best Enhancement Shaman build you can possibly have in the game, especially at level 60 when you get Lightning Mastery. Because you got everything that you need. You can stay at range if you have to. If anybody gets up close and personal, you can start bitch slapping them with two-headed weapon. Or dual wield stuff. You get more Maelstrom procs. We already talked about what Maelstrom procs are doing for you. You got all the tools you need. It's absolutely beautiful. The only thing you're missing is, really good offensive capability or ranged capability. So yeah, so I just started laughing. I was like, I think it's the same build whether you're an Enhancement Shaman or not. The only thing that changes is whether you take dual weapon specialization. Yeah, so anyways, this was just me looking at it really quickly. Some things I don't like about the build. I don't have improved Ghost Wolf form. Improved Ghost Wolf form is kind of huge. But I've played enough Era to know that this 31021 doesn't care. It literally doesn't give a shit if it has Ghost Wolf or not. And it's not going to give a shit if it has Ghost Wolf or not in Season of Discovery. Because if it wants to run away from you, to be honest with you, it kind of wants to be in melee with you. So it's like, oh no, I'm in melee, whatever will I do? And it just kind of beats the crap out of you even harder. So what does it matter kind of a deal. So anyways, I'm going to end a video here. And Deus Vault boys, please give me those ratios. I'm actually very curious what the cooldown and spell power ratio and base healing of Riptide is, what the cooldown and spell power ratio and base healing of Earth Shield is, particularly at level 50. Also, what's her proc rate, blah, blah, blah. Am I right about Maelstrom weapons proc rate being 5 seconds and PPM? Am I right that it still works in such a manner that if you have even one charge, it doesn't mess with one-handed weapon swing timer cooldown? Very curious how the Tidal Wave works in conjunction with at least one charge of Maelstrom weapon. Is it additive or is it commutative? Blah, 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 blah. And yeah, so I'm in a video here, and Deus Vault boys. Oh, by the way, I play Paladin, so screw you all. Fuck you, Shamans. I hate you all.